I don't know how to describe it other than like a demon type of sound.
But it's silhouetted, hulking, every bit of 5.5 feet wide, 13 to 14 foot tall, pitch black.
The one thing that ran through my mind when I had this encounter was I don't have a big enough gun.
Your host, two-time witness and field researcher for more than 40 years, William Jevning. Welcome to Creek Devil.
Hello everyone, welcome to Campfire Talk. This is where we sit around the fire with our feet up and a cold drink and just kind of let the conversation go where it goes. Fred in Alaska is joining Chuck and Forrest and myself today. So, folks, where should we kick this off? Fred, do you want to update us on what is happening in your neck of the woods?
Just wintertime right now, but there's more people coming forward. I get photos and whatnot, and I've been starting to showcase more of them in the short little video clip from Sower of one of these creatures at a pretty good clip moving across the screen. But the distance they had to zoom in, and it was cell phone quality, of course. But, I get stuff like that from the villages, I wouldn't say on a daily basis, but getting those people to come forward and actually talk on certain things is really hard to do. So I'm just glad they're starting to share, because what I've shared on the website and on my channel is not even a drop in the bucket. I mean, not even a drop.
You sent me some pretty interesting pictures a couple days ago that some native hunters sent you. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, the trackway pictures?
Yeah,
that was sent from Vincent Wassley out of Nunapitchuk. They were about 42 miles north of the village near the Kalskag Mountains when they came across what they thought were bear tracks initially, and once it broke out into the open on the other side of the brush, they saw, what kind of trackway it really was, and took the photos and stopped tracking, of course. And, they got out of the area after that. But
yeah, they realized right away what it was.
Oh, yeah. No, they didn't have to be told twice. They had an experience a year or two before, further south of there, where his sister and their cousin saw one of these creatures going up and down this ridge at a 45-degree angle and kind of standing by a tree. And it just goes to show that, in certain areas, there's no one around. Who wants to be out in the middle of literally nowhere? It's northwest of Bethel, and there's nothing out there. You know what I mean? And for someone to go out that way and try to just randomly hoax something like that is just, the odds are against that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the whole thing about hoaxing. I mean, they're going to do it in a place where people are going to see it. So if you're out in the middle of nowhere, what's the point?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And Alaska's so large. Forrest has been up here before, I believe. It's just large.
Yeah, I lived up there, Fred, for 17 years, so I know exactly what you're talking about down there in Bethel. And in fact, my husband, who's deceased now, but he actually went down there and hunted. He's hunted all over Alaska while he was stationed there. So, yeah. And I don't think a lot of people down here in the lower 48 have any concept of how large Alaska is. So, you can take and superimpose Alaska on the map of the United States, and with the line of islands, and then the eastern portion all the way to the eastern border of Alaska, it would literally stretch across the continental United States. So people just have no concept of the size.
Yeah, I agree. And it's hard to explain how the weather changes up here, too, because it's from one extreme to another. It's a world unto itself.
Oh yeah, you can have what like what we had here in Texas here last week, and Chuck and he knows exactly what I'm talking about. It was 10 degrees last week, and this week it's 70 degrees. And sometimes you actually have that kind of situation going on in Alaska when you have those winds come in from Japan, and everything's you may have the 3 or 4 feet of snow on the ground, and all of a sudden, those warm winds come in, and it's like everything's melting, And then the next week it'll be solid ice again. So
that's crazy weather.
Yeah.
Hey, Chuck.
Yeah, and you can. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I didn't mean to cut you off, Fred. Chuck was telling us a really interesting account last night about. Chuck, you remember the lady you were telling us about where she was driving in Kansas and saw the dead chimp on the side of the road?
Yeah, it was actually in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, yeah. Tell Fred about that. That was pretty interesting.
Well, Fred, I live here in Oklahoma, and I've got some pretty good friends in certain areas. Well, one day I was working and had just ended work and was on my way home, and I get a phone call from a friend of mine in Kansas who is a Bigfoot guy as well. And he told me, he said, man, I just got a message from a friend of mine, and this girl called him and talked to him. Her mother was driving. I don't know if she was driving from Kansas or to Kansas. I'm not really sure, but anyway, she called her daughter and told her daughter that on one of the mile markers along the highway, she saw a dead chimpanzee on the side of the road. And this area is probably 3/4 of the way to Kansas where this is at. And so he told me about it. He said, man, if there might be a dead body up there that you could go check out. And so it's about an hour and a half drive from me to get to where this mile marker was. And I drove. I was telling Will and Forrest that I think I was driving about 80 miles an hour just to get there. And I took my son with me. My son's kind of into this, but kind of not. He's a teenager, but a lot of other things interest your mind when you're at that age. But he went with me anyway, and we drove out there to this mile marker, and there was nothing on the side of the road, or nothing on the road showing a dead chimp or anything like that. But I noticed when I got to the mile marker that there were pickup tire markings on the side of the road. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. And I thought, well, maybe I need to check these other mile markers right in this area. So I drove back and forth a couple of times looking for this dead chimpanzee. Never did see it, never did find it. And so it was dark by this time, and I decided on my way home we were going to stop at a little convenience store and get us something to drink. And when I walked into the convenience store, there were 3 tribal police at the convenience store. And also what was really strange to me was there was a Kansas state trooper was in there as well. And I didn't talk to the Kansas state trooper. I didn't want to bother him. But I did talk to the tribal police there. And I said, hey, I just got this phone call. And I gave them my business card. I have a business card that tells you that I'm a Bigfoot researcher and investigator. And they kind of looked at the card and wanted to keep the cards. And I told them, absolutely, you guys are there. And I said, but the reason why I'm here is I heard the story that there was a dead chimpanzee on the side of the road. And I said, knowing what I know, I don't think that was a chimpanzee. And these guys just looked at me, and I said, did y'all come across something like that? And all 3 of them told me, well, no, we haven't heard anything about that. They said, but we're in the tribal area, and there are kinds of sightings all around. But I was telling William, I think what happened when I saw the pickup tracks in the ditch where this mile marker was, I think somebody came along and picked that sucker up and took it off. I really think something was there. But these guys weren't going to talk about it to me, But
right.
Well, there sure aren't any chimps running around that area.
No, No. And there's Bigfoot sightings all around that area. I mean, I did an investigation in one of the towns there. A lady called me, and Will, that's the place that I went to where I found the 23-inch tracks in the lady's backyard.
That's a big one.
And there was a lot of funny stuff going on around that property, but it's kind of crazy sometimes when you run across stuff like that.
Right. Whenever I get a chance, I try to corner the Fish and Wildlife troopers up here, because they're all state troopers. They're just different branches of it. You know what I mean? And I try to corner them and ask them, hey, tell me a good hairy man story. And the universal response is, there are no good hairy man stories. And
not that there are no stories, just no good ones.
There are no good ones. Yeah, I'd like to get a hold of a couple of those guys when they retire here in the next couple of years and have some conversations. We'll see how it turns out.
Yeah, you might get more than you bargained for.
Very well. I mean, you never know. But, there's all sorts of, people don't come forward about it, but people in planes and little village basketball teams flying from village to play, they see that kind of stuff all the time out the windows. There's many accounts of, small commuter planes circling these things and them running across the tundra. And I mean, just from one end of the state to the other, Yeah,
it's not. Well, there's that story with the guy from Monster Quest that was, and I know you know who I'm talking about, Will, that I can't think of his name right offhand, but he did all the Bigfoot inquiries on Monster Quest, and he actually was up, and they were actually filming, I think, something to do with trout or something up there. And they started following, they saw these footprints all along this lake in the snow, and they started, and when I say snow, it might have not been snow, it might have just been muskeg up there, and they were following these tracks anyway. And they start seeing that it's headed out across the tundra there area, and they couldn't get the native pilot to follow it. The pilot, in fact, got mad because he thought that they were pulling some kind of trick on him, and the tracks were so fresh that this guy just knew that if they got up in the air, that they would have caught up with it. But the pilot would not fly because he thought these these cameramen were trying to pull some kind of funny stunt on him. So
it's interesting.
Needless to say
about that, it's something you don't hear people talk about a bunch, or people in the air and planes seeing these things on the ground. You don't hear a lot of that. But the first time I knew about that was actually in one of Green's books. He had a story in there where there was a and I can't remember what the year it was, if it was late 50s or during the 60s. I want to say during the early 60s, there was a guy flying a small plane, and it was over the Bluff Creek region, and it was snow on the ground, and he saw this line of footprints. And I guess he thought, it was some normal animal until, as he was flying along, he saw the creature making the prints in the snow.
Well, it was a normal creature.
Yeah. Well, they just didn't realize it was part of the landscape.
Well, Fred, I want to hear about the little people.
What did you want to hear?
You're terrible, Fred.
I've been getting a lot. There's a lot of, the number of little people stories is on par with the hairy man stories. I get, when I initially started, it was just going to be all hairy man. Then I was going to transition into the little people because I hear a lot of accounts coming from the villages about them. And, they're either, from what I've been told, either helpful or mischievous, but also that there's a component to them that, is supernatural in nature, that steal your soul. As a matter of fact, coming up on January 17th, at least some of the local folklore, you cover your mirrors back home on that day because supposedly the veil is the thinnest that night, and that's when they like to play their pranks or steal souls. So
You know, that's not too far
That-
off from what the folks at the Klamath Reservation in Oregon talk about. It's very similar.
Yeah, it's a universal thing, and that's one of the things that frustrates me about academia dismissing it. It's like none of these cultures had emails or didn't even have carrier pigeons to communicate these things to each other, but yet it's a universal story in most cases, outside of the most extreme, but I mean, it's worldwide.
Now, what do you think?
Yeah, the only difference is the names.
Yeah, what do you guys
That they
think? I
have
mean,
mom.
is that something different, or would that be a juvenile Sasquatch?
I think it's something different.
I think it's something different because, I mean, some of the stories told to me, these things were wearing sealskin outfits, cloth-like clothing, rust black from non-Dalton.
Oh, I'm sorry. I keep interrupting. The story that you and I, Fred, talked about, the little girl when I was there, and you even knew about it, the little girl that disappeared in Palmer. And I had a friend that was at the Baskin, and she told me, she says, the little people got that little girl. The little people got her. She was, I think, 8 or 9 years old.
Right. Even that little girl's mom reported seeing what she thought was another kid playing out back.
Yeah.
Not too long before her daughter, turned up missing or whatever. I think it's because of all the mockery and all the mythological folklore. A lot of these things are dismissed as fairy tales, of non-existent beings, when the truth of the matter has been in their face the whole time. They've just been ignoring it.
Well, it's kind of irritating too when nobody listens to the natives, and they're the ones that have been here a long time and they know what's going on.
Oh, 100%. And a lot of natives, when they talk, it's always about important stuff. I mean, if you've ever gone to an Alaskan village, there's small talk and joking around, of course, but like some of the elders, when they talk, it's always on a level of learning something from it.
They got a reason
really
to talk. Yeah, it's not frivolous talk.
Yeah. Which I just think it's a crime that is just so readily dismissed.
It is.
And there are those out there that prey on native culture, so to speak, where they may hear certain key words stemming from native tribes and kind of make it their own. But it still boils down to what it is. They're out there in the woods.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well,
I feel sorry for
your
those
story about Martha was really interesting. The incident with Martha when she was a child.
Yeah, when she was explaining that her neighbor said they melted away, the way she was saying it had such a, I don't know, it was weird. It was hard to explain. You'd have to hear it in her voice. Yeah. Did you want me to share that story?
Yeah, well, yeah, sure. I mean, I listened to it, but I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that haven't. So, that gave me chills. It did. I was just like, ooh.
She was just old enough to leave at home to, tend the house or whatever, because they went on a hunting party. She's from a remote village, and she was left to get things ready for their return, have the meal ready, and she went and got dry fish and seal meat. And so it goes, she hears noises, it goes missing. She ends up seeing one of these things and then goes inside, super freaked out by it, of course. There was portions of it she asked me not to share about how scared she got, so I'll leave that part out. But so she ends up retrieving her grandpa's pistol. And so she has a pistol and all they have is lanterns. So she ends up hold on a second. Get out of there. Sorry, I got dogs trying to raid the trash when I'm not paying attention. Get out of there. I apologize, you guys. So she ends up hearing all these noises and stuff. Well, when she initially seen them out by the cache, because the seal meat went missing. Forgive me, I'm trying to pull from memory. I've been talking to a lot of different people about a lot of different topics, and I'm trying to pull it from memory. So she first the seal meat goes missing, and that's when she went out to the cache to get more seal meat and saw these things, and they ran off and down and away from the cache or whatever, because she heard them talking when she walked up, because the door was open a little bit. She had backed away, kind of trying to figure out what was going on. So she gets back inside, gets the gun. A little bit later, she hears a knock. It's the neighbor. The neighbor comes asking her if she is playing games on his porch, because they had some things happening down the way from where they lived. And she said, no, I've been here. Explains what was going on. Guy ends up, something ends up happening. He goes and gets his wife to keep an eye on her or something like that. Well, when they get back, between the time he left to get his wife and by the time they got back, these things had come up onto the porch, and she had opened the door thinking it was them, the neighbors returning, and it was actually 3 of these things, and they bolted out of there. Well, the guy ended up going to look once they got back and saw what he said was 5 of them. 1 ran off and the other 4 melted away right in front of the cache.
Yeah, that just gave me the chills when I heard that.
Well, I mean, she's an elder too, so hearing her talk about it, you can hear the angst in her voice. Like, I probably butchered part of that, but you know, you can hear it in some of their voices, especially the elders and whatnot. My cousin Elizabeth Osterhaus, she had an experience in 1967 with one of these things mimicking a baby, and it mimicked a baby she knew. And just hearing the elders speak and tell you about these things, you can just hear it in their voice. You know what I mean? There's it's hard to put into words. You'd have to hear them tell it yourself.
Well, I know my friend that was at the Basque, and she said that they were fearful of them, and and I didn't understand, because she used the term that they would steal their souls too, and I was like thinking, this little girl, that they did more than steal her soul, they stole her. So I kind of wondered if maybe that was what they were really referring to, is when they were saying that they were stealing their souls, that they actually would take the children. So and I don't know for what purpose that they would be doing that, but I mean, it's just frightening. I can't imagine this poor mother, and this was a white woman. She wasn't a native woman, to be looking out there, and then one minute the child's there, and then the child's gone. And there were some people that were trying to say, oh, it was bears. Well, you and I both know that, first off, if it was a bear, that bear wouldn't have gone that far with her. If it might have picked her up and drug her off someplace, but it wasn't going to go that far to start consuming.
Yeah, there would have been sign everywhere that it was a bear attack. I mean, and most of the bear attacks honestly happen around Anchorage and Eagle River. I mean, there was a young soldier killed just this last spring right outside of Elmendorf.
Oh.
By brown bears. So, the bear corridor is south of us. It's not a typical bear corridor, because where Palmer is situated, there's salmon rivers everywhere, but the main ones are over on the Susitna, where it goes up to Detchka and things like that, and up by Trappers Creek.
Oh,
and so, the bear corridors kind of arcs out from Anchorage and the Chugiaks there, and out of Eagle River in the Eagle River Valley and whatnot. So for it to be a bear and then show no sign of a struggle with the little girl, it's impossible.
I have to wonder sometimes. I was told by one of my good sources that the creatures don't always, when they kill people, they don't always eat them. So I have to wonder what the point is if they're killing. They must have some kind of a social structure, so I almost wonder if it isn't something, on their level, maybe some sort of it's got to have some kind of meaning. I don't want to use ceremonial as a word, but it could be, I suppose, on their level of organization. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, yeah, almost like I don't know. It could be something like a weird way of counting coup. Or,
I was just thinking that.
You know,
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was thinking too, but that's a little more than counting coup.
Well, I mean, we are dangerous to them, so I suppose if they were to, I mean, you know, Forrest, you know, among all primates, there's different status levels throughout groups.
Oh yeah,
and
what I was thinking is maybe a rite of passage.
Yeah, maybe.
You know, like you've got a younger male that's proving his worth, and now you know, there are times that like with chimpanzees, I always go back to my favorite monkey, my favorite ape. That they will do things like kill other monkeys, and then by sharing that meat with it actually gives them
higher status,
more status in the group. So it's like, you know, hey, looky what I can do, you know.
Well, and the status,
and that might be something similar.
And gaining status is also connected directly with breeding rights. I remember one of my anthropology courses many years ago, they showed us a film of this group of chimps, and they, you know, had identified the submales and the ranking they were at. And what they did was they introduced this square metal 5-gallon can. It was empty into the group. And one of the submales that was about 4th or 5th down from the alpha started rolling and making a bunch of noise with this can. It was a big silver metal can. And it scared the other ones and actually raised his status considerably in that group by just that exhibition. So it's kind of a demonstration that they do things, primates do things like that to gain status within a group. And maybe that's, you know, I mean, it's not like our, you know, humans have done it in many, many cultures, you know, go out and kill the biggest, baddest thing out there to prove manhood. So I'm wondering if maybe at times they don't take humans for the same reason.
Yeah,
right. Because I know what I saw. It didn't necessarily look like an ape to me. It looked like I explained before, like an old photo of those Native Americans, you know, across the cheekbones, but with a much thicker brow and a nose flat to the face, but wide nostrils. Mm-hmm. And I only saw branches from the bottom of the nose to the top of the brow, real close. But it didn't. It looked more man-like versus any kind of ape.
And we have different variants. I mean, I don't think, like I've said before, you know, not everything Bigfoot is Bigfoot necessarily. And Forrest, you and I have talked about this, where some of these things that are seen could even be, you know, relatives of humans that aren't Sasquatch, but they're not human either. They're, you know, maybe those, like remnants of Neanderthals. We'll just throw that out there.
Yeah, well, I'm one of those crazy anthropologists that still believe that the Neanderthals are still wandering around out there. I mean, granted, they're not in large groups or numbers like they used to be, but I think they're still. I think that if we looked in the right places, that it could be found. And you and I have discussed too about the when we see these almost baboon-like. Bigfoot, that I think that might be an entirely different species of Bigfoot. That,
absolutely.
Exhibiting that prognatism and the muzzle and such. And well, I guess we're not going to know until we get the somebody that goes out there and lives amongst them.
Yeah, we're ways away from that. Yeah, as long as that person doesn't become a hat.
I'm not volunteering for the job, and I don't think you are.
Yeah, I don't want to become a Bigfoot hat. Thank you very much. You know, like the old coonskin hats that they used to have. You know, they'd have a human head or human hat.
Instead of Davy Crockett, it'd be Davy Bigfoot.
Right. I got my human. Did you get yours?
One of those, I was looking at one of those maps of caves, and someone, I forget where I seen it. It's been a number of years now, but I saw a map someone had come up with that shows a bunch of interconnected caves throughout the world. And with all these relic beings and whatnot, if those places exist, even on a smaller scale than what I saw this rendition of, it's totally possible. There's way more going on than we have a clue about.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there is anyway. You know, whether there was a cave system or not, there definitely is more going on than we realize.
Oh, come on, guys. You know we know everything there is to know about everything on the earth.
Sure.
Don't you know that? I mean...
You won't catch me saying that.
Well, I was being facetious now, Fred.
Right.
Oh,
The more I
what is the
learn, the less
what's the
I
latest
realize.
sighting that you've seen out there?
Pardon me?
I said, what's the latest sighting that not actually that you've seen, but you've heard about out there?
Oh, some of these were shared in confidence as far as the latest ones, but there's a road crossing just 2 days ago down near Moose Pass. That was the most recent, and that's just outside of Seward there. You know, I've had reports from Bertha Creek as well, but those were older reports. But you know, I think there'd be a lot more sightings up here if there was more road system.
Yeah, absolutely.
To be honest with you, because I mean, we got one main set of roads, one that wraps around through to Canada, and one that goes from Fairbanks to Anchorage on down to Homer and Seward, and that ain't nothing. And the amount of roads in the villages is laughable compared to even a small neighborhood down in the States. So it's just so vast. And you know, I had a discussion recently about mountain giants, and you know, just the 2 or 3 that I've heard of, that's a terrifying thought in and of itself, because there's so many places they could hide. You wouldn't even know. I mean, one of the reports, this thing ducked down when it heard a plane coming, and it blended in seamlessly with the background. You know, I had like a greenish gray skin, almost like a neutral universal type color that just, you know, dulls its outline once it gets around some other stuff.
Well, I doubt they bathe regularly either.
You know,
Did you hear about tusks on
them? Yes.
Those used to go all the way down to Oklahoma, which I'm sure will make Chuck happy.
In Oklahoma. They just don't need to come across the Red River.
I haven't heard anything as far as the giants go, but I do have 2 stories on the little people here in Oklahoma.
Oh, tell us.
Oh yeah.
Well, I you know, one of the tribes here, it's a Cheyenne and Arapaho tribe, and I'm not going to tell you where. I'm not going to say out loud where this is at, but they're pretty familiar with me. They know what I do, and they know I'm pretty serious about what I do. And there are times when I can go into the gas station area, and if they see me sitting down somewhere at a table, I'll even have some of the security come in and sit down by me and start telling me stories. So this story actually comes from one of the tribal police. And this gentleman told me, he said, there's, you know, a lot of strange things that happen around here. And of course, Bigfoot's been spotted there as well. But he said, we got a call on the radio that there was a kid that was running around the parking lot. And they told us to go out and find this kid because they thought this kid was lost. And I don't remember how many officers there were that actually went out there looking for this kid, but they saw this little person, and they said he had buckskin clothes on, and he was running around the parking lot, and they tried to catch him. They couldn't catch him. He was laughing at them the whole time that they were chasing him, and they said he just disappeared. They couldn't find him. They didn't see him anymore. And all of a sudden they hear laughter. And he was on top of one of the buildings looking down at them, laughing at them. And he jumped on the other side of the building that he was on and took off, and they never did see him after that. But that's just one of the stories I've heard there. I heard that when all the little people stuff started happening, they were building a windmill unit to produce electricity for the gas station and some of the buildings that they had out there. And they dug down real deep in the ground. And when they pulled the bit out of the ground, they saw cave structures down below where they were drilling. And they said that when they drilled that's when things started happening around there. And I actually had a guy that I worked with. He was part of the tribal community. And he told me a story about when he was a kid, probably 7 or 8 years old. He and his brother and his mom were driving through the tribal complex, and they went by the powwow grounds there. And he says, as we drove by the powwow grounds, there was a campfire there, and all around this campfire, he said there was probably 10, 15, 20 of these little people that were sitting around the fire. And he said, I looked over at my brother and my mom, and he said, did y'all see that? And they said, yeah, we saw it, but you're not supposed to talk about it. And, you know, there's stories like that here in Oklahoma of these things actually existing and actually have been seen by quite a few people. And I've also heard, you know, from these people, these things are way more aggressive than Bigfoot. And you need to be real careful around this kind of stuff. And so I don't research the little people because of stuff that they've told me, but I know they're out there.
Yeah, I don't research them either.
It's like the tusk giants. I'd rather not run into one.
Yeah, I try to stay to just sticking to sharing the story about it. I have no interest in seeking any of those out. That's for sure.
You know, I was telling these guys about when I chat with Mr. Black, the one guy I call that in particular. There's a few of them, but there's one in particular. And he tells me about all kinds of things that are not Bigfoot, and mentally I'm going, la, 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 I don't want to hear this. I don't want to know this. And he's very happy to share some of this stuff, and I'm thinking, oh, no, I don't want to know all that.
Ignorance is bliss.
And sometimes it really is.
Well, it's kind of like that time that my husband went hunting with some guys, and he heard the story about the hunter that saw the giant going. Of course, I've related this to you before. That they had seen. He didn't see it, but the guys were talking about it, and it was a third person thing. You know, I know this guy that saw this thing, and Casey was like, that was when he was like, I think I'm ready to go home. You know, I didn't come out here to hunt giants.
And I guess people don't know what we're talking about for the most part. You know, the tusk giants are not 40-foot giants. They're typically 20, 23 feet tall, that range. I guess you would think of them, I guess, kind of like a Bigfoot. Not really, but they have tusks.
They look more human.
Yeah, but tusks out of their mouths.
Yeah,
and very aggressive. Apparently, even the hairy man are afraid of them.
Now, is that what they killed in Afghanistan?
I believe so. Something like that.
You know, I don't know about that story. The one story I do know, and again, that comes through one of these Mr. Blacks, was there wasn't one killed. They spotted one climbing this mountainside, and it was 3-4 miles away, and they called in a helicopter right away to get out of there because This thing saw them from that distance and made a beeline straight to them, and they barely got out of there on the helicopter before the creature got to where they were.
Well, they've had several airmen and Army personnel that have sworn that Kandahar giant was a true story. So all I know is I'm not going to go looking for them. So you can keep all those guys up there in Canada and Alaska.
Right. Some things that have to go horribly wrong in my life for me to end up in Afghanistan anyway. So I'll let the Afghanis deal with that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, not something on my bucket list to do.
Well, you know what? I would think that it would be interesting to find out if the Russians have any stories regarding that when they were in Afghanistan.
Or even from Russia. I mean, it'd be interesting. We don't get a lot of stuff coming out of there in Siberia. I'm sure, they have their own version of these creatures that we deal with, but, that's such a huge...
Right. I saw some footage of a Russian hunter that he recorded some screams moving in on him, scaring him to the point of shooting his gun off to, try to make as much noise as possible. But the video footage is creepy as hell. I think his name is Sergey or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you guys have seen the footage, but man, that is creepy. Yeah, it's on YouTube. I saw it on the Impossible channel, and it was in a compilation type of videos. And geez, just the murmuring and the humming and the stuff going on in the background of his recording is just
that's huge country, especially Siberia. I remember, after the Soviet Union collapsed, I think it was Weyerhaeuser, they had some logging contracts with the Russians, and I almost applied to go there because it was a good job. And they showed on their website the size of some of these planned cuts. And when you looked at the size of Siberia, now these cuts were the size of states like Vermont. And that's huge all by itself, but when it placed on the map of Siberia, they were tiny. And when I got to the part about one of the dangers was tigers taking loggers, I thought, oh, hell no, I'm not going there.
Yeah, I got enough to worry about with bears and moose trying to stomp me to death.
Right.
The last thing I need is a tiger to bite my ass.
Don't need a tiger trying to get you. I'm not on the menu for anything. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I've seen videos of those tigers in action, and I want no parts of that. I don't care what kind of gun you got for me. I want no parts of it.
We got one here. We have one. I think it was National Geographic that put it out. And in one part, they have a helicopter flying over looking at this tiger. The tiger actually climbs the damn tree to get after the helicopter. It was going to attack a helicopter. And I thought,
right.
I just thought, there's
true
no
TV commercial I saw where a tiger came out of the grass and jumped at a guy on top of an elephant.
Yeah.
Said, screw your elephant, I got your ass. He actually got the guy's arm or something like that.
Being on Bigfoot's menu is enough to be concerned about. I don't need those kind of things.
Oh, God.
That would just be a bad day.
Well, it's kind of like what we were talking about last night. Well, when I said that I still have to keep in mind that big one that I saw, that, and I won't use the term that I used for my son.
And what term would that be for us?
No, hush up now. we gotta make them think I'm a nice lady. Anyway, they talk sometimes like she was on the old army gal. Anyway, I have to keep in mind that sucker is still running around out there somewhere.
Yeah. I think that's something that people, a lot of people like to fool themselves, especially in the Bigfoot community, that these kind of archaic thoughts about them being, shy and elusive and possibly friendly and all this stuff is total nonsense. You're dealing with an apex predator. And if they're coming around for a reason. It's not to tree peek around and play games with you. They're probably looking for something to eat.
Well, I think elusive might be a good term for all of them, but I don't think that shy is necessarily an all-encompassing term for all of them.
No.
I mean, some of them may be that way, but I don't think all of them are. So, and I think it's like you get with, and Fred knows exactly what I'm talking about. You get bear that are accustomed to taking down people, and I mean, polar bears, I mean, they have no inhibition about taking humans down. And so it's like, once something gets used to doing that and they know that they can accomplish that feat with little or no effort, I mean, let's face it, we're easy prey. We really are. And, I mean, we can't run fast like a deer. And most people just go stupid when they're confronted with something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that once they get used to doing that, it becomes habitual with them,
What do you think, Fred?
Right. And, with the level of missing people up here, I'm not trying to cast aspersions or anything, but even if a couple are going missing because of the hairy man, that's too much, way too much. That's one of the reasons I have that map, is just so people, even if they don't take it seriously and they just want to hear the story, maybe that story involves hearing an owl mimic and they happen to go to that area and hear something similar. Maybe it'll spark the memory of hearing that story of someone's experience, and maybe allow them to get out of there before something potentially bad happens. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot more people are having experiences that they just chalk up to something weird than they realize.
I think it's like, if you know a grizzly's in the area, your behavior is going to be a whole lot different going into that place. And I think if people realized what these guys are all about, they'd be in the same mental place as if they were going in where grizzlies were.
Yeah. Because regardless, people are going to be people and do what they do. You know what I mean? But I've heard, plenty of encounters that happen up here that happen on the berry patch, at a moose kill, at a caribou kill. I mean, I've been shared just in the last handful of days, a good maybe 30, 35 different experiences in the berry patch, or, hunting moose. And they're all very similar in nature. They're accosted. They're doing their thing, and these things come in on them, make themselves known for whatever reason, distraction, what have you, whatever it may be, and the people leave the area. So, it may be like on Kodiak Island, the bears are so used to the hunters going there for the elk and what have you, that when they hear gunshots, they come a running. It's like the dinner bell.
Same thing in Yellowstone.
Exactly. So, it could be in some areas, it could be along those lines. They may be generationally now, since more people are coming up here, it could be something as simple as one came across an easy mark, scare away the hairless ones, and, let's get us some moose or some berries. And it's progressing, because it seems like I'm getting, well, at least more and more people are coming forward with it.
Well, it's like people, when they, especially, when they do, let's say, criminal activities, well, I guess any kind of activity, if you get some kind of positive reinforcement from doing something and you try it again and you get good results again, that becomes a repeated behavior, and it's kind of part of your toolbox, so to speak. Yeah,
exactly. And, a lot of this exact same behavior is coming from vast expanses from one end of the state to the other,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to moose hunting. And it's almost like they have a universal knowledge of how to scare the shit out of us for us to get the hell out of Dodge. And again, I've never heard anyone come to me and say they had a good feeling about.
Well, you know how it is with people. People generally spook pretty easily, and we're not what we once were, so we get spooked pretty easily. And all they have to do is see that once or twice, and they know what works.
Yeah, definitely.
And Forrest, I would think you would see that in other primate species as well.
Oh yeah, they. I mean, let's face it. We're not living in caves anymore and having to defend ourselves and showing, and I mean, visibly showing bravery. We're all living in houses. We're all closed up, and the only time we come out are for specific activities outside of the home. And I mean, this is pretty much anywhere, even in Alaska. So. I think that they see now that we're not the same brave souls that maybe we once were. I think they do recognize that that guns are they go boom boom and then things fall dead.
Mm-hmm.
They do recognize that, and just like Fred said, grizzlies up there, they hear you shoot something and it's just like the dinner bell ringing.
Well, Fred, you said
learned that real quick. Yeah.
Yeah, Fred, you said this is happening.
Primates do that. Yeah. I mean,
he said this is happening all over the place. So that tells me that they've picked up on this really quickly, and other primates do that too. Remember, we talked a while back, and again, I go back to my anthropology classes. They showed us films about these. I think they were macaques on these different islands, and they were giving them the sweet potatoes.
Oh yeah, that was they were the one female picked up on if she washed it
had the salt
in the sea, and she got the salt on there, and then they started eating the. I saw the same film, and she found out. Oh, it tastes good, and then the next thing it's like monkey see, monkey do. Everybody's
all the
doing
rest
it,
of them, and actually even on the other islands they started doing it. So it kind of tells me that maybe that's what's going on with these guys. They're seeing that human behavior is both changed and it's much more easily to scare us and push us out of an area that they want.
Well, humans don't do nice things anyway. I mean, it's ever since we came and climbed down out of the trees and started walking around on 2 feet.
Mm-hmm.
We've done nothing but destroy our environment, and it's I can't say a lot of nice things about how we have progressed through the eons of time.
What were you going to say, Fred?
I lost my train of thought there for a minute.
Well, we're talking about this behavior that's kind of spread all over the place.
Right, and another thing, I feel there's so many more people out there that are sitting on potentially a gold mine of knowledge for those seeking any kind of information just from experiences they've had that haven't come forward yet. It seems like we're reaching a tipping point almost because let's face it, the amount of evidence. I mean, you have people like bow hunters, just all of a sudden they're out doing their bow hunting thing. They got themselves a little channel or whatever, and out of nowhere, they see a Bigfoot. They catch it on film.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's almost like.
Well, like
I don't
we
know.
talked,
I feel there's something being held back. Like there's information out there. We just haven't put the pieces in place yet, so to speak.
We talked to a guy in New York the other day who, do you guys remember if he said he was a first responder of some type? He didn't say what his job specifically was, but he lives in upstate New York and he commutes to New York City for his work. And he has a security system on his house, and one of the cameras points out his driveway. And he was on his job, and he got 2 notifications on his phone that the motion sensor was triggered. And he gets these 2 pictures. And here's this dark shape, and you can tell it's not a bear, on the opposite side of the road in front of his house. And he's not even saying it's a Bigfoot. It's obvious when you look at it what it is. It's not a great picture, but so it kind of goes in line with what you're saying. There's people who inadvertently are beginning to get things, and many people who get things, they don't show it publicly. And to me, that's telling because, the first red flag is if somebody's on Facebook or wherever or YouTube and waving the flags about something that they took a picture of, it's probably not legitimate. Because in my experience, the people who have the really legitimate stuff really don't want to talk about it. Sometimes they completely deny it.
Yeah, I've seen that personally. And I've also seen people who had footage, and I doubt they'll ever show it, But this thing, it was at least 10 foot tall. I say he because that's what he was. He was a big male. He walks in between this fence and this man in the yard with his daughter standing behind him, and the wife is recording out the window. This happened down on the peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
And this thing had killed their goat, tore it in half, and threw it against their cabin the day before. And they were attempting this little homesteading trend thing. Move up to Alaska, we're going to homestead, blah, blah. Well, what ends up happening is he spots it a couple days before, is freaked out by it. It kills the goat. And him and his daughter, middle of the day, he runs. The video footage starts with him jumping off the porch because his daughter was standing in the yard about 20 feet away from the window. He runs and gets in front of her. And in the video, all of a sudden, this thing is just walking between the dad and the fence in the back of the property. And it's giving him this look. I get the chills thinking about the look. It was this look of disgust, like I'm going to end you. I just can't right now, kind of thing. Like it was almost restrained in one way.
That's so similar to a story.
All the time, don't we, Will?
That's so similar to a story I got from a cop friend of mine who he knew this family, and I don't know what may have transacted prior to this situation, but they were all outside doing yard work, and they had a Mastiff. And the Mastiff heard something run to the tree line and got there and tried to run away too late because this thing come out, grabbed the dog, tore the dog in half, and threw it at the family. It sounds just exactly like that experience.
Yeah, but
the
look is what I can get on. I mean, aren't we hearing that more often? How
we are.
That people actually make comments that they look at them and they look like they're disgusted with humans.
Right, or angry.
Yeah, I tried to convince them to let me share it. I'll leave your names out of it. I'll leave the exact location out of it. And this is 4K footage. This is a newer Sony camera they used. It is very crystal clear what you're looking at.
I interviewed a couple ladies. About 3 weeks ago who had a sighting up at Mount Rainier. And it was interesting. I got a laugh at first because they were Bigfoot aficionados, and they collected up they buy up all the paraphernalia out there, but they never thought they would see one. So they went on a hike up there, and lo and behold, they saw one, and they actually filmed it. And I haven't even seen the film. They won't show it to anyone. And I'm sure it's probably not the greatest with a cell phone, but that's the kind of thing we run into. When people, they'll get this stuff, and when it's legitimate, 9 times out of 10, or even greater odds, they won't show it to anyone.
Yeah, and I try to tell people too, like when I'll get random emails and they'll offer to share certain things, and I'll be like, well, if you're just sharing with me personally, that's cool, but I'd like to really be able to share this with everyone,
right,
and not everyone's willing. The few that are, I post it, I share it, like the trackway and, that little video clip from Sellewick. For people, if they really understood how difficult it is getting information from my fellow natives,
oh yeah,
they would have a different understanding of the situation, because this stuff is happening all over the state. There's probably
people gripe. Oh,
happening.
Yeah, people gripe. Oh, you don't ever show us anything. Well, most often the people usually don't want to show you things.
Yeah, that, or they know, like just posting anything nowadays, it's too subjective.
It is, because everybody's got an opinion.
Yeah, and it just kind of, it takes away from the person who has experienced it. Because some of these people coming forward up here, it's not easy for them to, just because of, their profession.
Right.
I've heard experiences from federal investigators, police, all types, all walks of life.
I've experienced that too. All walks of life and professions, and usually the higher level professions, they definitely don't want that stuff to get out.
Right, and they usually have the best damn stories, man.
I know.
Tell you what,
I know what you mean.
They usually have the best ones, because being the first to respond to something, typically you're going to get there when the evidence is hot, so to speak.
Right. Well, listen,
Well, and
everyone.
people don't understand that in Alaska that there's less than 1 million people that live in that vast expanse of wilderness, and it's like you would be surprised. It's like running into. I mean, it's like everybody knows everybody. You know.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Yeah.
if one little story gets out, then the next thing, you know, I think people are just fearful of ridicule. I mean, I
That's a lot of it.
You know, when
Yeah.
when I first told my kids about it, they laughed at me. You know, they were like, "Yeah, sure, Mom," and I was so serious that they were like, "Oh." And then the next thing I know, you know, when my grandson starts recounting his grandson-in-law starts recounting his story, then everybody's going, "Oh, there is something going on out there."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, there is.
Well, listen, guys,
And it ain't good.
we're just about out of time, so we'll end this discussion for now. So, everybody, thanks for listening, and join us next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Creek Devil. If you or anyone you know has had an encounter with these creatures, please contact us at williamjevning@yahoo.com. That's William, Jevning, @yahoo.com. All communication is confidential. Join us for another program next week. And until then, keep your eyes open out there.